Another
incredibly dirty.
Substack that I'm a subscriber to, and he doesn't even give you the
Matt Stoller.
ability to be I don't think a paid subscriber, but I'm
Yeah.
not. I'm just a regular old subscriber, but he does fantastic work primarily on monopolies and on business and corruption. I'm a big fan of anybody that's reporting on corporate corruption. So this is big politics and monopoly. Actually, I think he does ask for donations or for a paid subscription at the bottom here. He might.
Yeah.
So over the past few weeks, been writing about the shortages and getting a lot of feedback. And one of the most common complaints he's hearing is from medical personnel who tell him that the shortages in everything from masks to blue top collection tubes used to test blood clotting to lidocaine to gloves. There's a well-known set of monopolies behind this problem, and so that's what I'm writing about today. Plus, he's got some other things in his newsletter, and first some housekeeping. Okay, so he was on the podcast Real Vision with Mike Green, which you can watch at this link there. And now, the shortages aren't new. So again, what's gone wrong merely in the disruptions caused by COVID? Indeed, David Frum at The Atlantic is the latest to mock that there is something wrong with our markets that set us up with a fragile system. Frum criticized the new approach to concentration as taking us back to the 70s. Pursuing resiliency translates in plainer English as higher taxes and higher prices. Instead, he suggests that we should, in
Right.
the face of inflation and shortages, do nothing because the immutable laws of supply and demand will work themselves out. David Frum. There are a couple of reasons that this dismissive attitude, of course, doesn't make sense. Healthcare is a great place to understand problems with supply chains because they predate COVID by 20 years. For more than 10 years, hundreds of drugs and medical supplies, everything from saline to epinephrine to chemotherapeutic agents to antibiotics to sterilized water, have been regularly in short supply or outright shortage. The shortage problem is clearly not due to COVID, though COVID, of course, exacerbated. So this became clear when I got feedback from you on the shortages you're seeing. Okay, doctors told him that often they have to switch from drugs that they understand to lesser known drugs because of shortages, which can lead to medical errors. But this situation isn't a result of COVID. The fact that the FDA has had a drug shortage web page for years. So new shortages cropping up all the time. First, this is a reader making a point out to him. After a storm affected production of saline in Puerto Rico, limited supplies of fluid for intravenous infusion ever since then, especially since after COVID pandemic hit, an unpredictable shortage will hit the hospital where they work. Of course, right now there's a lidocaine shortage. Wow. Before that, it was gloves, which were replaced with whatever the
Yeah.
hospital could get its hands on. The worst being flimsy ones from Malaysia that clearly hadn't gone through quality control because they'd stick together in the box and rip when you tried to put them on, wasting half the box. Great. Wow, it's just N95 masks, respirators. You see, there's a whole laundry list of things here. Okay, so here you go. You can be sure and thank Macy for this pie. And again, he talks a lot more about, early last year they retooled to produce PPE. We now have an industry that can make a lot of different medical supplies, though clearly not everything. But what I'm told is domestic supply chain, while now impressive, simply cannot sell into domestic hospitals. Um,
Right.
so that means new firms are going to stop investing and shut down what they're producing. And this is a profoundly weird situation. If there are shortages, why can't hospitals buy from new producers? It always seems to come back to changes in hospital buying that took place 30 years ago among a small group of middlemen known as group purchasing organizations or GPOs. You can be sure and thank Macy for this fine pie. So again, this is he tells a really cool story. Um, this is a really long article. I'm not going to get into the entire thing. Why can't we make
People
masks?
should go. Go read it.
Yeah, I recommend everybody go read it. This is a long one. Moving forward, GPOs and hospitals couldn't do what they do without political power. So what happened with Senate investigations petered out, blocked by powerful senators like Schumer and regulators who never saw a kickback they couldn't get beyond. These middlemen have brought up everyone in the industry here, for instance, is a comment to the FTC on the wonders of GPOs funded by the industry and authored by, among others, former Obama FTC chairman John Leibowitz. Jeez. Corruption breeding corruption. Here, how the Federal Reserve caused a massive merger wave. This is another like bomb of a story just hidden in there. All right, and he does write another story about this, the Cantillon effect. This is really
Right.
interesting. Okay, in March 2020, Congress Fed coordinated and joint actions to backstop the financial markets, which were going haywire because of the pandemic. This was encapsulated, of course, in the CARES Act, which legitimized the endless bailouts from the Fed towards private equity in the corporate sector. At the time, he called it a corporate coup, explaining that through what is known as the Cantillon effect, that money printing as it was done would lead to significant corporate consolidation, and so it has. The Wall Street Journal reported that after only 8 months, 2021 is the biggest year for M&A since they started keeping records. Wow, remarkable, right? One McKinsey
Yep.
consultant recently put it, when you've got the Feds saying debt'll stay cheap for years, plus historically high multiples, the numbers look buoyant, especially if you're a seller, right? This was all predictable. He's he's good. Here's a chart I put together using Hart-Scott-Rodino data from the FTC, a law that requires firms to report mergers over a certain size. November 2020 was a huge month, but if you look since then, and since the pandemic, here's when the CARES Act passed, straight up. Already the number of mergers has far surpassed the total number for all last year. This is the annual chart. Wow. Wow. Over 3,000 mergers and acquisitions already in 2021. And we still have 2 months to go.
2 months.
Right? Well, really 3 months. We got an entire quarter because they announced stuff really right up through the end of the year. Okay. Lena Khan, she's our new FTC chair. So she laid out her priorities in a widely circulated memo. It's a very important document because expectations are very high, and how she prioritizes will go a long way towards indicating whether her tenure will be successful. And again, he summarizes. Oh, it's only a couple of paragraphs. Cool. In this memo, she indicates her goal of pulling off the FTC from its traditional role of going after one-off violations and ripoffs and striking at root causes in big firms. That means thinking about market structure itself, not just harm to consumers, as well as moving beyond economists and bringing in different sets of experts. She also indicated a desire to further democratize the agency, which means more open meetings, potentially open more regional offices outside DC, and to reflect the nation as a whole. Well, that sounds like an expansion of the state. Already, they've opened
Yep.
comment periods to hear about unfair contract terms, with several thousand having been received already. But it's expanding the state to help potentially workers in order to crack down on monopolistic practices if they use that in that way. My
Right.
concern is what kind of precedent that might set. In terms of policy priorities, the FTC will focus on consolidation in general as a problem, dealing with the overwhelming merger wave and trying to find ways of deterring obviously illegal transactions so they don't suck up resources. New merger guidelines will be a key part of the anti-consolidation push. Khan also wants to focus on quote unquote dominant intermediaries and extractive business models, quote unquote, aka middlemen, who use their critical market position to hike fees, dictate terms, and protect and extend their market power. So private equity gets a mention as stripping productive capacity, distorting business incentives, which is a huge change since antitrust enforcers tend to like private equity, seeing as it's a force that introduces more competition. That's what they see it as,
Right.
at least. And finally, she wants to explore unfair contract terms, take it or leave it type stuff. She wants to go after non-competes, repair restrictions. What do you think of that? And exclusionary clauses based on the comments the FTC is hearing from the public. She's a hard job for a
Yep.
lot of reasons, not the least of which is that the merger wave the Fed and Congress has engineered is inundating the FTC. This is another really interesting article. So this is like a summary. This is about did Zuckerberg and his team violate insider trading laws? Another long article there for you to read. Send me tips on weird monopolies, stories I missed. You can sign up here for more issues of Big, which I did, and if you really like it, here's this book. Again, I don't think that there's a way to. I'm already subscribed, I believe. So this was the other one I was considering including was the more than half
Right.
Americans have experienced a shortage, but um, that's gosh, it's just heartbreaking. Um,
Another.
I can't I
Yeah.
can't co- I can't cover like so many depressing stories. The medical shortages was enough, but this was like wow. Vendor lead times are beginning to fall, which was a positive sign. Um, but that's Matt Stoller.